All right. Marty, are you recording or is that somebody? Okay, great. All right, everyone. Welcome back to another community career coaches community event. This one, we don't have a special guest for this time around, and it's just going to be more of a conversation about how to buy back your time. Time is the most valuable resource that we all have. And the way we spend our time is ultimately what makes the whole difference. And it's about leveraging our time to be able to grow. Because the reality is that we don't only have 24 hours a day. We have to sleep. We have friends. We have family. A lot of you have kids, right? And so that's going to take a lot of your time. And so the best way that you're going to be able to scale your business is by learning how to buy back your time. So I have some points that I want to discuss, but it really is going to be more conversational. I'll also share with you guys a link to a workbook that has what I'm going to be talking about today. So you guys can access this document and you guys can kind of essentially go along with it as well. But I'm not going to share my screen. I think it'll take too long, and so on. So here's what's really important to understand. A lot of the lessons that I am sharing here with you guys today is a book that we ultimately, and I'm actually going to change locations because it is really hot in this fire that we just did. So a lot of the things that we're going to be sharing today is coming from the lessons of a book that really changed the way I saw time management. In fact, we had everyone in the Opni team read it last month. And the book is by Dan Martell. It's called How to Buy Back Your Time, which is a lot of it. A lot of it, what I'm going to be sharing with you, has to do with how to do it as a career coach itself. So there's and not everything's from the book. I would just say a lot of it is, and just so to give credit where credit's due, because I'm not that smart to write a book like Dan Martell. He's obviously really freaking great to do it that way. But there's four main leverage points that we need to understand. Like there's four main things that you can use to leverage your career coaching business. And let's go through all four of them. One, which is the most commonly used, is media, right? If we create one piece of content and that is seen 1,000, 100,000, 1,000,000 times, then you didn't have to share the same message one-on-one with 1,000,000 people, right? So you can use media to leverage visibility so that we can get more leads, more clients, and grow our business, right? Make sense? So social media makes it super easy to do that. After we go all four of them, I want you guys to type what you think your biggest one is. The second one is labor, right? Labor is buying someone else's time to do tasks for you, right? A VA, hiring a team, outsourcing a ghostwriter, outsourcing a lead gen, outsourcing sales, outsourcing a resume writer. Those are all ways to leverage the growth of your business with somebody else's time, right? I say this all the time. I think building a career coaching business is hard and it takes time. It just doesn't always have to be your time. And depending on where you are in your life, because life is a trade-off of time and money, you can speed up the results of you building a 6-figure or 7-figure business with labor, with media. Make sense? The third is tech. And I think a lot of us do this already really well, like Zoom. This is tech. Calendly, Kajabi, right? Loom videos. If you work with me, you know I will send you Loom videos every day and every night. I utilize the tech. I utilize Calendly, right? I utilize a CRM like Monday to help me keep track of leads, help me keep track of customers, right? So we can utilize code, we can utilize tech to facilitate things that maybe would take a long time, right? There's ways to automate messaging. There's, AI now, ChatGPT, right? Like all of those things that's crazy, right? The amount of what we can now do that we couldn't do 3 years ago when we didn't have access to ChatGPT. That's massive amount of leverage that we now have access to, which I also think is like awesome because it's never been easier to start a business with very little capital than in the last 10 years, right? Like the big tech companies have really made starting a business. You can start a business with less than $1,000, where before it was very capital intensive, which takes us to the 4 leverage point, which is capital. If you have money, you can buy tech, you could buy media with paid ads, you could pay influencers, right? You could buy labor. So you could do all 3 of them with the right tech, with capital, right? And so I think it's his name is Dan Martell. This 4 leverage points wasn't Dan Martell. This is actually outside of his book. But I think that's really important because I don't know how many of you, and I would love to hear if you guys have ever thought about it that way of saying, okay, building a business is going to require a lot of resources. It's going to require a lot of leverage, but it doesn't have to be your leverage or your time. And that could either be media, labor, tech, or capital. Odds are there's a combination of both, of all 4 of them involved in it some way or another. And what you need to realize is what plays to your strong point and what's your weak point, and be able to maybe even double down on your strong point. So if you do a SWOT analysis on yourself, you're going to be able to realize, okay, for me, Daniel Botero, my number 1 is labor, my number 2 is media, my number 3 is tech, and my number 4 is capital. And that's obviously changed throughout the years, because before, when I first started the business, it was capital was my number 1. I sold my 401k and I invested a lot into the business. And that because of that, I was able to then translate that to to labor, and I was able to translate that to technology, and I was able to translate that to media. Hey, Ellie.
Hey, so I just want to make sure I understand correctly. So for me, like potentially like my weakest would be labor, because I do all the labor. I don't have a VA, I don't have anybody. But then like my strongest could potentially be tech, because I have a lot of tech in place that does process for me and helps me save time. That's how you would rank it?
Yeah, like that would be where you are today. And then the question is, what do you need to get better at to get to your business to where you want it to be next, like 6 months or a year from now? But yeah, absolutely. And understand that those things will change as your business changes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're looking at it the right way.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, there's more than one ways to solve it, right? Like, because you could be really, really good at media, and you don't need and you don't need a big team if you have media using technology and automations, and you sell a product that's a low ticket offer that doesn't require any one-on-one, and so you don't even need labor. Does that make sense? Or you could build a business where it's high ticket that requires a lot of one-on-one and a lot of done for you that then requires labor. Right? So it's like, it goes back to the question is like, what business do you want to build that is aligned to the goals that you have for yourself? But understanding that there's only 4 main lever points, like all other leverage points fall into one of those 4 buckets.
I have another question, sorry.
Yeah.
I think I need more help understanding the capital part of it. I understand tech, media, and labor.
Yeah.
What are some examples of like what capital looks like?
Capital is money. Like, for example, if you get a loan, or you have a 401k, or you have a savings account, you can buy labor, media, and tech.
Okay.
Like, you investing in working with me, you use capital to create a shortcut.
Okay.
Right? Like, does that make sense? Like, you're using capital to buy my team's time and my time to speed up the learning curve.
Cool. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
So that is a capital, which if you think about what like Silicon Valley is famous for, is for freaking flushing in capital to buy market share, even though they'll lose money for years. Like Amazon only started making money a couple of years ago. For the first 15, 20 years of their career, their life, it was all capital. They used capital to buy tech, to buy labor, to buy marketing.
Okay, thanks, Coach.
Yep. Rose, did you have a question on that? Oh, I think you had a statement. Okay, you need money to make money. Yeah, look, and I would say that life is a trade-off of time and money. You either have the time or you have money, right? Like, if we're born with all the time in the world, but with no money, and if we play this game of business right, will end up dying with a lot of money in no time. And this is where you see a bunch of really, really wealthy people trying to like live forever. And it's impossible because no one's beaten death yet. And so I'm sure somebody will in the future, right? But the point is, there's phases to this, which essentially is like in the beginning, your first jobs, you're always trading time for money. Like in the beginning of your career, we all traded time for money. Like I remember me doing landscaping when I was 14 years old, and I was trading $5 an hour. Like that's how much I was making, $5 an hour. That's how much my time was worth. But as I get older, the first phase that you need to start transitioning from an employee to a business owner is trading your time for value. Because if not, you can't scale. Because if you're trading your time for money, then your bottleneck in the business is you. So that is where you then need to use your time, your money. Like if you know that you make, which then takes us into your buyback rate, which is understanding how much is your time worth. And that is different for all of us here. And that's okay. And as we get, our business gets bigger, our time is worth more. It's always a trade-off, right? And so it's always understanding how much is your time worth so that you can always make that trade positively for you. So which is the first exercise that I want us to do? What is your backpack rate? And you don't need to tell me that, but the way that you would do is say, okay, how much did I make last year? Or how much do I think I want to make? Like if I want to think futuristic, and let's do $100,000 for easy math. If you get $100,000, you divide it by 2,000 hours, which is about the amount of hours that we work in a year, right? That's going to give you $50 an hour, right? To me, anything that you can delegate at 1/3 of your buyback rate should be a no-brainer delegation. So at $50 an hour divided by 3, that's $16.60, I think, if I remember looking at the worksheet correctly. Yeah, $16.16. Anything that's below $16.16 that I do not like to do is the easiest decision of my life. Right? Like cleaning the house, delegated that 10 years ago, never went back. Right? Like cutting the grass, same thing. Like lead gen, we don't like doing lead gen. Can I get someone to do it for less than $16 an hour? You could probably get it from a lot less than that. Like what I'm saying is that's the threshold. And depending on how much I hate something is depending how much, like how much am I willing to do it? I might be even willing to do it for $25 an hour, which is half my rate. And if I really, 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 really hate it, I might even be willing to pay more than my backpack rate. Yeah. $16.60 is an example of 100K. If you took home $100,000 and you divide that by 2,000 hours, it's $50 an hour, and you want a 3x return on your time, is $16.60. If you want a 2x return on your time, would be $25, right? And so that's the way you would want to think through it. Because a lot of times we never take the time to understand how much is our time worth. So then you definitely don't know what you should be delegating or not. Especially when you get to the phase of your business that you know your numbers, that you know that this many more leads equals to this many more clients, which means equals this much more income. And when you can get your business to that point, then it's so much easier to be like, okay, I have no fear in hiring and outsourcing a contractor, a VA, a video editor, a lead gen person, because you can understand how the math works and how this pays for yourself, and then you're leveraging time, right? Because if I have 20 employees and they're working 40 hours a week, I don't know how many hours that is. I think it's like 800 hours. Like that's 800 hours of people working in my business. Like how can you I don't know. I can't be that smart or naive to think that someone by themselves can build a bigger, faster business than I can at that point. Like it's just like scalable. And sometimes I have to look at my calendar and put everyone who works with me on my calendar and see that calendar be like that. And I'll be like, damn, it's impossible for me to ever do that much. And the only way that works is because of leverage, which is in that scenario is labor. And it's understanding what the tasks that they're doing and how that task either saves or makes my business money. And so that's obviously like the sequencing behind all of that. Yeah, and I think you have to find out what you like or you don't like, which then that takes us to time tracking. So I'll show you guys an example. So I would say like sequencing. Step 0 is understanding the 4 leverage points: media, capital, labor, technology. Step 2 or step 1, this is now where we actually start actionable steps, is understanding how much our time is worth and what's our buyback time. Step 2, okay, it would be step 2, right? Step 1 is buyback time. Step 2 is understanding. Step 2, it now becomes understanding how are you spending your time, right? And this is where you do is a time tracker. So you would go and put the tasks that you do, how much time you're spending on it, where does it fall under? Is it marketing, lead gen, leadership, sales, and so on? I added the day of the week. You don't need to add that. If you wanted to, you can. What type of business was it? So like earlier in the year when I was doing this, I was splitting my time between being a career coach and being a business coach. So I was trying to identify where am I spending my time? And then you want to rate yourself on, like, like when you go to Google and you're looking at restaurants and it tells you like $1 sign restaurants or $4 sign restaurants, same thing. So what I categorize is $1 sign is $0 to $29, $2 signs is 30 to 100, $3 signs is 100 to 500, and then $4 signs is anything that I think is $500 or more, right? And that way I can know where I'm spending my time. And then the last thing that you want to do here is that you want to color code it, because even though having a one-on-one with Salo, I would consider to be a pretty high value task, is not something that I want to delegate. I enjoy my one-on-ones with Salo and with Samuel. And if you look at a lot of my greens are leadership things. And so this also helped me realize, right, that a lot of the reds happen to be around career coaching. Like I wasn't finding that much joy doing one-on-one calls or doing group coaching calls with career coaching clients. Like I felt like I've been doing it for 10 years. It was getting really repetitive for me. And so like that also allows me to then have my team and help me plan spending times on what the things that I like to do versus the things that I don't like to do. Does this make sense? Any questions? Thoughts?
I have a question. Do you typically evaluate if it was good or bad energy like after or before? And I'm going to explain why I'm asking this question, because sometimes I'll have like a sales call booked and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. And then after it, I'm like, that was really good. And I feel really happy. So like, what was your methodology?
After. So like I
Got it.
had my assistant build it out and I put the dollar signs and then I put the colors. Right. And so you can see, which is really cool. Like, and and Tudor, I'll come back to you. I don't encourage you. You don't have to do this every week. I just encourage you to do this like once a quarter for 2-3 weeks, because 1 week is not enough sample size to be like, like that could have been a different, like I'm in Colombia every 2 months. My weeks in Colombia are totally green. Like I don't have any meetings. I don't have any podcasts. I literally block on my calendar to go ride horses. Like it's completely different than it. But I also go and work differently when I am at home, and I work every Saturday. So it's like I find the balance that makes sense for me. But if you look at like later on the week, you can start seeing less and less red. I have less and less red. Why? Because this made me realize what I don't like to do. And so what did I do? I delegated it out. I stopped having those meetings. Like I can own my time. I can buy back my time. I am in a position to have capital, to have labor, to have tech, and to have, like, I have all 4 of them, not to where I want them to be. I want them to be bigger, but I at least have a lot of leverage. And because of that, 3 weeks later, it's a lot more green. But if I wasn't doing this, how can I even know that I'm like I was burned out. I could tell you this week, I was so burned out that I literally took, my team was like, Daniel, take 3 days off. And I disconnected and I went to Savannah, Georgia, which is like 4 hours away. And I just like literally like went through this and I said, shit, like I am not enjoying this. And that was the weekend that I was like, I'm not taking any more career coaching clients. Like it's too much, it's too obvious. When you put it like this, it was too obvious of a decision.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like all my greens were business coaching. It was way more
Mhm.
leverage tasks for me, like more value added. There were bigger dollar signs. Like
Mhm.
everything was like, okay, like it was blaring obvious when you look at it that. So it's like interesting. So I had my assistant do this for a while. But yeah, you can see just so much more green. So much more green.
What are big rocks?
Big rocks are the priorities of, like if you read the book Traction, which is the next book you're
Oh
gonna read,
yeah.
right? It talks
Gotcha.
about like what are the three main things you're focusing for the quarter. And so my goal, this is like you can see the work that the thing evolving. My goal is that I'm spending 80% of my time or more on big rocks. So in this scenario, 34 hours out of my 40 hours that I worked were on big rocks. And so that was a successful week.
Okay,
So
nice.
I could do that every week for 12 weeks in a row. There's no way I miss my big rocks unless I
Mhm.
set unrealistic big rocks, which I could tend to do sometimes. So it could happen, right?
Okay, thank you.
Tutor, what's your question, my friend?
Daniel, so when I was so I put the question in the chat, but does the 1/3, going back to the example with the 100K and $60, does it, if you extrapolate this for the entire year, does that count for like 33K? So for example, 1/3 of your income, does it make sense to save that, let's say, for their services, or are you talking about just strictly staying within that $16.60 value?
So I don't think I understand. Maybe I mean, let me tell you what I understood. You're saying if it's 100K, I am saying if I spend $33,000 in outsourcing, you're saying is that my budget for outsourcing?
Yeah, yeah. Does that go with your example of $16, the 1/3 of the $50 an hour?
Well, the idea is that it doesn't take a year for you to get a return on investment, right? If anything, you can get that return on investment much faster because what I'm saying is if I delegate, for example, one of the first things I would encourage a career coach to delegate is getting a VA to do lead gen because lead gen, I would say, is a very high value task that can be easily delegated. And you can quantify that if you pay a VA $2,000 a month, that should generate you at least $6,000 to $10,000 in additional sales. So to me, that's a really easy buy back your time model,
Daniel,
right?
I have a question. When you referred to lead gen, are you talking about like activities like posting content, creating lead magnets that would move the needle in order to generate leads? Or you're talking about like actual engagement and DMs connecting with people, or both?
Lead gen, DM, anybody that likes, comments, views my profile, that's my ideal avatar. They start the conversation and their whole job is to get them to a workshop. That's it. Like when we were doing career coaching, Mari, who's now managing our community, Mari, how many leads did you get a week?
Like when we were
Career coach,
working with, for career coaches, we do 50 leads a week.
for no, job seekers. Like for when we
For
were
job
doing international
seekers,
students.
it was 100 leads.
100 leads. How many sales calls did we get from those 100 leads?
It was like 25.
30?
Yeah, like 40
30
people attended and 25 scheduled the
schedule.
calls.
And then and then some other people will just schedule directly from the automatic webinar. We would get an average of 40 sales calls and we would get an average of 10 clients a week. Yeah. Yeah. Tutor, did I answer your question though? Like I think I kind of halfway there. Like the point is, you know that your time is worth more spending on something else. Like especially if you're a career coach, even if you're on the one-on-one phase and you're charging, let's say $2,000, and in those $2,000, because I know you work with students too, so there's a lower price point. But in that $2,000, you're spending, I don't know, your average is about $200 an hour. If you can delegate some $16 tasks because you can spend more time doing $200 an hour coaching, that's a good arbitrage. And that's the whole point here, is that you're delegating, automating, or deleting low value tasks. And every quarter, you're spending more and more time on higher value tasks. The good thing is that those tasks continue to improve, because what I used to think was high value is no longer high value anymore. It's at a whole different level, right? And so I think that's the point, is that we're always upgrading, right? It's like you're upgrading what you think your time is worth as your business obviously increases.
So I guess, Daniel, said another way, if it was 1/3 of your, let's say, income total, that would be the max ceiling. And would you be spending up to 1/3 to always be improving your business? Or would you only spend it like lesser amount?
No, I actually think you invest more. I say 1/3 is like the no-brainer of absolutely. There's some tasks that I'm willing to pay 50%, $25. There's some tasks that I'm willing to pay more, right? Like I have paid a business coach $20,000, $30,000. Like their time is worth more than my time. They're more successful than I am, and that's okay, right? But I think the point is, how do I make that money back? How is that going to help my business so that I can get to the next level? I was talking to someone about this, and I forgot who it is, but in traditional businesses, not service based, the way you grow is by investing in machinery. So like I have a mentor, crazy story for another time. My dad died when I was 3 years old. Long story short, my dad's best friend, who I got disconnected with when I moved to the United States, and there wasn't social media back then, is one of the most like wealthiest people in Colombia, probably one of the wealthiest people on the planet, maybe top 1,000. Like he's really wealthy, hundreds of millions of dollars. And he recently came into my life, ran into him in the airport, freaking crazy story. But he like mentors me. He tells me like a lot of he's like super old fashioned, never read a business book, but it's like hearing Gary Vee talk, except he doesn't even know who Gary Vee is because he doesn't have social media. But essentially, it's saying the only way for you to grow a service-based business is by hiring and investing into people who've done it. And manufacturing, which is where he comes from, you buy a new plant, you buy new equipment that's faster, more efficient. This is how you do it in this type of business. So I would even encourage you all to have, like, my budget is 20 to 25% of revenue is reinvested back into consultants. Like, but you have to vet that consultant to make sure that you get your money back.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that makes sense. So 20 to 25 is how ideal investment, and then anything less than that.
But
is
it's not
probably
ideal. It goes back to how fast you want to go, right? Because it's a leverage of time and money. So if you're like, hey, I want to get to 7 figures faster, you can speed that up by buying someone else's time, aka someone else's knowledge, aka someone else's mistakes, so that you don't make those mistakes, right? Which is like the mistake that I made. If you watch the 7 mistakes that I made, it took me too long to hire my first VA. It took me too long to hire my first business coach because I tried to figure it out all myself. And what I did is that I paid for it in a different way. I paid for it by burning through my 401k versus if I would have stayed at PepsiCo a little bit longer, I could have just used my PepsiCo paycheck and invested into a coach and shouldn't have left my PepsiCo job until I've gone to at least replace my income, which it took me 3 years to replace my PepsiCo income.
That's good. Thank you.
Hey, Victoria.
I was actually just going to ask a question along the terms of investing in like coaches, et cetera, because you know that's like, you know, my forte, unfortunately, fortunately. But yeah, I want to like, what are your signs that you look out for? Like, let's say, Daniel, you know, however long ago when you were looking at investing into a coach, like what exactly were you looking for to know that was actually going to move the needle and help you meet your goals? Because you can hire a coach any day, but are they actually going to help you be successful and actually have an outcome? So I'd love to get that perspective. It's kind of off subject, but now that you're here.
No, but it is on subject because it's all about buying back your time. And you're buying back your time by buying someone else's experience. The question is, who's the right person. And I think, again, I'm gonna give credit where credit's due. This is a Hormozi quote. The best person to learn from is from someone who's been there, done that, and has taught at least 3 people. Because being there and done that, like them going through the same journey that you're going through is amazing, right? But then teaching others how to do it is a different skill set. So those are 2 different skill sets, the skill set of doing it and a skill set of teaching others how to do that. So in the best case scenario, learning from someone who's been there, done that, and has also a proven record to be teaching others to do that, and other people have gotten success by doing that, that's your ideal person. The problem with that is that those people are expensive. Like there's no way you're gonna find someone that's cheap and has been there, done that, and has a track record. Right. So the second best person to learn from if you go in order of sequencing, is been there, done that, but hasn't taught anybody yet, and you're early on, and so you're kind of halfway testing it. So for the clients that joined me last year, they got a much better deal than the ones who I work with now. Like, that makes sense? Because they had to take a bigger risk than someone that's working with me now, with which the risk is virtually not there anymore, because I already have the track record. The third is to learn from someone who was part of that journey. So for example, if Salome left me, right, and she started her own business, she would be a really good person to learn from someone because she was there the whole way, right? It wouldn't be the same as learning directly from me, but it would probably be the third best, like the second, like in this scenario, be the third best option. And then the fourth is by someone who studied a person who's been there, which is crazy, which most college professors are that, which is why I think universities are kind of a little bit of a broken system, because you're learning from someone who's learned from how others did it, versus it's really rare to find a professor who's been there, done that. And if you find, those are the best professors, which generally they're the best professors, but they suck at research, which is why it's hard for them to get tenure. I'm going to digress about that another time.
Thank you so much. That was really helpful. Really good. Thank you.
But it always comes down to likelihood of success. This is what you're essentially betting for. And I'm going to bring this back to career coaching, because this is what you guys need to understand when you're selling your clients. In the beginning, you might have to offer more guarantees, more one-on-ones, work with them for longer. But once you have 100+ testimonials on your LinkedIn, you can be like, yo, you don't believe me? Go look at the testimonials. Like, what else? Like, it's what Gaurav was saying when he says he always shares them examples of people he's already worked with and be like, yo, this works. Look at the people. They're just like you. They got a job making this much money. You can work with me or not, but if you work with me, you'll probably make $200,000, $300,000. Like, you just stack up the success stories, and it's really hard for someone not to work with you. Which is why Gaurav can go charge $15,000 and have a closing rate of 40% or higher, and a lot of career coaches can't sell something for $2,000. It's the likelihood of success. You're paying for it one way or another. You either pay for it with time or you pay for it with money. It's up to you. And by the way, it depends where you are in that stage. And for the longest time, I pay with it with time. I paid the ignorance tax with time. And that's okay. It's part of it, which is why capital is a shortcut, which it goes back to, like, you could buy your way. You can hire the right people for the right amount of price. But it's finding that sweet spot for you, Victoria. But if I can give you one advice, is if you make everything a priority, nothing's a priority. And I think that in your scenario, you get too excited until when you hire too many people at the same time, you have too many people giving you advice, and sometimes it's contradicting advice, and then you get stuck and figure out what to execute first.
How do you know that? No, you're so right. You're so right. There's a lot of, what do they call, cooks in the kitchen? For real. I feel that. No, you're so right. And I definitely appreciate that. I think along the lines of what you're saying, it makes sense to have one solid coach that's done it, seen it, and has results. That makes a lot of sense. And I will say here, in front of all of you lovely people, that I've definitely hired multiple coaches and had multiple coaches coaching me at one time. And it was very difficult to follow the different pieces of advice because everyone was giving me something different. So I definitely recommend not doing that and finding one solid person or team.
Yeah. and it's not that you can't, it's not that you work with one coach forever, is that you understand what is it you're trying to solve, what is the bottleneck that you have, and who is the best person to help you overcome that challenge, and only solve one main bottleneck at a time. So like that's the main point here. Like, it's like, okay, one coach is going to help you with speaking, fantastic. One person is going to help you with operations, fantastic. Like, it's understanding that sequencing behind that. Yeah. What other questions do you guys might have about like buying back your time, like, or anything that we've spoken about so far?
I'll ask another question if no one else has a question. I would, I've been getting some feedback from like other coaches about like VAs that they've been working with, and they don't feel like they're delivering on the service promise. I know that you have VA, it's not your VA agency, so disclaimer. So but I feel like they say like they're just not giving like the quality work that I would want. And of course, like VAs, you're not paying them like a huge sum. You have to be very, thoughtful. But what are your thoughts in terms of working with the VA if they're not delivering on your big picture idea, and how to kind of solve that issue? Or should you just lower your expectations?
No, this actually takes us to point 3. So let me kind of summarize it up and answer your question. So step 1 is understanding your buyback rate. Step 2 is understanding how you're spending your time and identifying what can be delegated based on what's red and what's 1 to 2 money sign, right? After that, that should give you a clear picture of what are the things that you should be delegating out. And you should then make a decision is this 3 different VAs that I'm just outsourcing projects, or is this one person can do all of it? And so you can kind of identify that. To me, the first hire you should make is an integrator VA, a VA that wears multiple hats, that was Salome for me. That's essentially like what we like our sweet spot is. Find an integrator VA that can spend, if I can give you guys like the easiest way that I know you're going to get a return on investment on a VA is 20 hours a week doing lead gen, 10 hours a week doing client success, like checking up on your clients and I would say like accountability. I'm not telling you that the VA is going to coach your clients. They're just checking up on your clients, making sure that they're executing. And then 10 hours a week doing administrative, calendar, emails, helping you build resources, helping you build marketing materials and so on. That 40 hours a week is easily worth everyone's here $2,000 a month. Like it's easy. Like you're going to make that money back just on the lead gen itself, and everything else is just gravy. Like everything else becomes just gravy. In terms to answer your question, Victoria, there's some tasks that are more high skill, like video editing. I would rather just outsource, pay somebody in Fiverr per video and do that. Like, podcast editing, I think that could be done by like, Mari, how long does it take to teach somebody how to do podcast editing?
It takes like 2 hours to
That's an
teach
easy
someone
thing.
else.
That's
Yeah.
an easy task. So I would say video editing. I think copywriting is a hard skill to just delegate right away. I wouldn't delegate copywriting. I even tell my clients that would be one of the last things I would delegate for you. Like I would delegate out. I think sales calls are something that I wouldn't delegate right away, because if your closing rate is 30% and your VA is closing for you at 10%, you're losing a lot of money. So that would not be one of the things I delegate out. So I do think lead gen, client success, accountability part of client success, and then building resources, those are all really easy, like not easy, but very comfortable. So like you don't need to lower your expectations for that. I think the mistake, and this is where I think like we do like #humble brag here. Our team does a really good job at having clear expectations for what the VA's role is, building action plans of what they should be doing to ensure that there's a return on investment for HBA. So like, is building that out, is saying, okay, what are we hiring this VA for? What needs to happen in order for you to see a return on investment? And then the VA manager, Valentina, who's currently managing this process, is having one-on-ones with the VAs on a weekly, bi-weekly basis, and ensuring and quality assurance that they're executing that. Because that way, if we know that if they're doing this many leads, this leads to this many clients, which means this much revenue, that a VA is given at least a 3 to 4x return. If you do that, but that's not a VA issue. That is a leadership issue. That is happens in America, that happens in Canada, that happens anywhere. The number one reason why people leave their job because of lack of clear expectations. Number two is their boss. It's not pay. It's pay is the third thing there. So if you have clear expectations for your VA, they have systems and processes that they're following. You don't treat them like a VA or like a robot, but you treat them like a human, right? And then you pay them a decent wage, they're not leaving. And just like you, your VA wants stability. And if you can give them those three things, you just found yourself a Salome. You just found yourself an integrator. And what you want to do, if you want to take it to the next level, is that you give them like some sort of profit sharing or equity. Like Salome is my business partner, right? Like I don't treat none of my VAs like VAs. Like I call them VAs so you guys know what I'm talking about, but they're W-2 employees, like their company, they have benefits, they have healthcare, they have pension, they have vacation. Like, and when you do that, I think you're going to see you build the culture. I am willing to put any of my VAs to a $70,000 employee in the US. Any day. Yeah. Hey, Rose, you have a question?
Hey, thanks. Yeah, so I wanted to ask about the media portion of the four things. So how do you kind of communicate that your process or your service is worth the investment without necessarily saying, oh, there's going to be a money back guarantee or some sort of guarantee, like in terms of money back. But like kind of, because for me personally, I'll just speak from my experience. I have a lot of testimonials from clients. I have a lot of like both written and video testimonials. I have case studies, and yet for some reason the conversion rate, it's perhaps I'm not communicating it clearly enough, or how kind of explicit do I have to be in terms of my content to be able to convert? So where am I, like, I'm trying to figure out like where I'm going wrong in terms of the conversion from my content. Thanks.
I would have to understand, like, look at your content more, Rose, but I would just say it's understanding the data, right? Like, that is why I think it's really important to have clear KPIs and track them on a weekly basis. So, like, I know that around 150,000 views. So when I did career coaching, right, just career coaching, we were strategic about posting 2 posts that were viral, 2 posts that were educational, and 1 that was more call to action testimonials. We knew that average generated us 150,000 views, which generated about 100 leads, which generated around 9 clients. Sometimes there were 8, sometimes there were 12. It was like averaging 8 or 9 clients, right? It's like 9.5 clients. So for me, like, it's understanding the data. I know that you sell more of a LinkedIn service, right? And in that scenario, I would actually say because people care more about how those views generate leads and clients versus how those views generate views. And so I think it's more not talking about how much views you got your clients, but how many leads and clients that you got your clients. Which
Okay, so
if you're a
it's
career coach,
about,
go ahead.
sorry, just to clarify, it's about communicating the return on investment from the client side in terms of, because different clients need different things out of LinkedIn, so it's not always about lead gen. Sometimes it's about, elevating their authority and getting like other types of opportunities. So
But that's where it's understanding what is the goal of your program. Like what is that person trying to do? And like I know there's a lot of executives who want to build their presence. So their goal might be to be on 10 podcasts a year. So like that, it's creating KPIs around that and then being able to deliver that, right? And that's where, like, I don't want to stray away to doing business coaching that's not career coaching. Like, I can communicate this in career coaching because this is what I did for 10 years, right? Like if I am posting about career coaching, it's more about talking about how my client was successful and having my client be the hero of the story, and I'm just a guide. Because what you don't want is that I see this mistake a lot in career coaches, is that we always want to position ourselves as the hero, but we're not the hero. We're the guide. And so it's always about how our clients are amazing and they were just guided by us. And then people are going to connect the dots and be like, okay, Pavi's clients are always getting those results. I need to work with Pavi to get the same results. And then people will make that correlation.
And how many of those per week, like client-centered content should we be posting?
It depends on the stage of your business. But if all you care about is sales, then you would post all of them to be that. Like Gurov is a perfect example. He has less than 15,000 followers on LinkedIn. He has more sales than all of us. All he posts is that. Because he doesn't care about the vanity metrics or views. He only cares about the bottom line. So that's the thing. And if you even hear Adam's workshops, or like when Adam came and talked about how he grew, in the beginning, he went very viral. He purposely went viral. He knew the topics that were controversial and he went after them. And you can grow really fast. But I'm willing to bet you that Adam's posts are going to be very different in the next couple of months because we're shifting the process. I'm like, Adam, you care about going viral, or you care about building a business? So then you change the strategy. So
Can
it
I make
depends
a
on where
comment
you go.
about that?
Yeah.
So so I understand what you're saying. A lot of people do that, but then the audience that you end up building is not necessarily the one that's going to end up buying your services. So you're going to have like a mixed bag of people because you're targeting viral content versus trying to target a very specific, narrow type of audience, if that makes sense.
Partly. The other thing is, how clear is your call to action? Because I would go viral post, but if my headline, not call to action, my headline is, I help international students, I had way more international students follow me than they weren't. Right? Because the first thing that they would see is that the beginning of that headline on your LinkedIn. And so if you have a very clear niche, it will attract. When you go viral, it gives it to everyone, but it will get more of your niche to follow you. So like it all depends where you are in the business and what you're prioritizing. And there's no wrong or right answer. It just depends on the strategy that you're trying to build and what you're optimizing for. And I think like for me, I used to optimize a lot the vanity metrics. And I actually think like I look back at it, I'm like, I overvalue that, which is why in my YouTube video, I'm not going in for viral YouTube videos. I don't care if I get 50 views on my YouTube video because all 50 views are all career coaches. And that to me is more important now. But it wasn't a year ago. So it just depends.
And just a final comment, if you will, about KPIs. So, because like I said, like different clients have different KPIs. We do set KPIs for the clients, but so like should we have one KPI that you target for every single client to kind of make that your thing? Or should you be, because like my whole thing is about customization, right? Because everyone needs something different. So I'm like customizing the strategy for everybody. So like I said, some people want like, more authority and some people want, focus on lead gen. Different people have different goals. So how does that, like the different KPIs that are set, how does that impact everything?
Bro, how about this? I'll message you and we can talk about it because I don't want to divert from business coaching for career coaching. And that's you're selling a different service there, right? But for career coaching, it's super simple. It's like jobs before goal date, net promoter score, right? And engagement rate. That's what we look for. Like that's the client success KPIs that we always encourage our clients to track. Like how fast are they getting a job? Their execution rate and their net promoter score. In your scenario, it's all about the discovery call and figuring out what's important to them and making sure that you're delivering that. Like, and I think it's very different. And that's the problem when you're customizing it so much, because it's really hard to generate predictable results because everyone's definition of results is different.
I understand. Thank you.
Yeah. So just to recap, and I can open it up and I can stick around a little bit longer if you guys have questions, but I think that what I want you guys to take away from this is like building a business does require leverage. There's no way you're going to do this by yourself. And so there's 4 leverage points, right? You have media, you have labor, you have capital, and you have tech. And it's identifying which one is your strongest point and which one you can use to help you grow your business. Then you want to understand your buyback rate, right? Which is understanding what should be no-brainer delegation. And then do your time audit, because that time audit will allow you to figure out where you should start delegating. And that's the key there. And there's levels to everything, right? The levels to that. But to me, if you're doing more than 5,000, even consistent $8,000 a month, a good VA should be able to buy back at least 20 hours of your time. So I'm not saying that a VA's 40 hours of work is going to be 40 hours worth of your time. That's unfair. That's an unfair expectation, right? To say that Mari can replace 40 hours of my time. Like, that's not fair on her, right? Like, I'm the one who's had a longer career, who's have all the bruises and burns from my falling of trying to build this business. Like, but there's a lot of systems and processes that she's going to be able to take away from my plate to make me more efficient and more effective. So I would say, realistically, if they can do at least 20 hours to 30 hours, that's a really good trade of your time, right? And then also identify what are some things that you can have a general VA do, like an integrator VA, versus like video editing or sales calls. Those 2 things I think are very specific skill sets that is worth paying more of a premium and separating those tasks separately. And same thing, if you think about the client success part, depending on who your clients are, you might need to hire coaches that are in America, that have way more experience, that cost a lot more money, but you're probably charging a lot more for your services, right? So like, if you're targeting mid to senior executives, having a career coach in Colombia might not be the best solution for your clients. So you might have to pay somebody $300, $400, $500 for a resume and a LinkedIn, but it's worth it because now you're charging $5,000 plus, right? So I think that's like what you need to figure out how to balance. Yeah, exactly. Hey, Victoria.
Really quick, I'm just curious, where are you right now? And talk to me about that painting. I'm very curious that you got recently.
So I am in Colombia. So I'm from Colombia, and I'm in a house that I inherited. Has been in my family for over 100 years. So it's like been here since 1913. And I inherited this from my grandparents, who I made a painting for them. This is what I got myself for my birthday. And the whole concept is like this house is full of paintings. So like that's the big picture is my dad. The little one is my great grandfather. So you have my great grandfather, my grandfather and grandma, and my dad. And a year ago, I had a vision of saying, okay, there's this window here, but in the other side, there was a wall. And so I said, what if I make a window, like a painting, the same size as the window? So it's the same size. And I have my grandparents who passed away looking inside, always being part of the conversation that happens here. And so if you see this painting is the same background, that if there was actually a window there, it would be the same thing.
That
So,
is amazing.
yeah, so that's
Beautiful.
the painting. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Absolutely beautiful. What a treasure to be able to be part of that and own that home and keep it in your family. That's so cool.
That's like one of my biggest goals was like, how do I make sure that my kids inherit it? And about 4 years ago, when I wasn't doing that good in business, somebody came and offered us a shitload of money for it. And I said to myself, like, I'm not gonna sell it, and I needed the money because like I was like, damn, I need the money. And if I didn't sell it then, I'm never selling it. So knock on wood, it didn't happen then and it won't happen now. So yeah.
We'll make sure you never sell it. We'll all rally together to raise funds.
No, it won't happen anymore. Like I think if I can give you guys some perspective, like in the last 2 minutes, building a business is like a game. It's like, and there's levels to this game of business that we're playing with. And there's always going to be ups and downs. And if you ever played any video game, whether it was Mario a long time ago or whatever game is going on now, right? When you die, you never really die and start all over because they can't steal the knowledge. Like you can take away my company, you could take away my team. If you drop me else in the world, in a year, I'll build a very similar size business. You can't take away the knowledge. Like you can't take away the knowledge. I already know what to do. Like I will just go someone, ask them to invest in me, use that capital, leverage that capital, hire a team, build everything, build all the systems, all the funnels. So like, it's interesting because when I decided to go to business coaching, like just stop doing career coaching, I literally took 3 months of losses, but I knew that I was going to be able to build the business coaching business bigger than the career coaching business, but it wouldn't take me 6 years to do it. It would take me 6 months. And in 3 months, I was able to like get to the similar spot. So like, it's because you can't take away, like, don't let school get in the way of your education. Like a lot of it, and this is the key is like, once you get to and it's the same thing in your career. And I'm sure that you see this, like, if you were to have lost your job when you're working in corporate America, pretty sure you're going to be, within a year, you'll be earning similar again. And so I think like, and it's the same thing with business. Like it sucks in the beginning. It's like, business is one of those things, like for the first 5 years, you're heavily underpaid. You're working more hours and never making less money than you've ever made. But if you do it right, 5 years from now, you'll never work less and earn more. So all like, if you look at all like, even like Jeff Bezos, like look at his story where he was 20 years ago, where he was working in a room, his table was a door. He never worked harder in his life than that time. And last year, he doesn't even work at Amazon anymore. And he made more money last year than all the other years combined. It's this compound interest the business gives you. And if you build it right, where the business is working for you, not you working for the business, I think you're going to understand that like it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing when you have systems, processes, a team where you can go and work and take time off and have a balance. So anyways, total tangent. But I hope that like tells you guys there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. Spencer, man, the negativity.
That was a quote that is not direct from me. So
Hey, Pavi.
I suddenly got a question regarding the planning. Can I still ask?
Go ahead.
Okay. So how do you plan your week? Do you typically have any weekly themes? Like some days are leadership focused, or do you break a day into like different areas of focus? How do you do that? Because I struggle a lot with the context switching. Yeah.
Hold on. I'll show you guys. So one of the things I would encourage you guys to do is do something that I call like, it's not, again, I don't think that anybody ever makes anything up by themselves. You just learn something and you just combine things together, right? So this is like called an ideal calendar. I don't even think it's by Dan Martell. This is actually, it might be in Traction. I don't even know where I learned this, but you essentially open up your idea, you build your ideal calendar, and the idea is that you try to live up to this calendar at least 75% of the time. For me is leadership meetings. Mondays is one-on-ones and leadership meetings. And then in the afternoon is like group coaching calls, office hours. And then I have time for my big rock. So big rock number 1, open for meetings. So right now, I'm doing a lot of sales calls. So that's open for meetings. It's time for people to be able to schedule sales calls. And then big rock number 2, because I only have 2 main rocks that I'm focusing on this quarter. So that's kind of how I plan it. Not so much before, when I was a solopreneur, I did do more of what you're saying, Pavi, where like one is like marketing, client success. I would separate it like that. But I would say that there's no right or wrong way of doing this, right? It's what works for you. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Awesome.
Yes, I have a question. Sorry. So like, when did you feel like you were financially able to hire VAs? Like, how much were you making monthly that you're like, okay, I'm good enough to like start hiring right now?
You know, I hired VA 3 years too late. My business coach at that time, his name is Alex Kuhn, was the one who forced me to get a VA. And he doesn't have a VA agency. He was like, dude, what are you doing? Like, I look at your calendar, you're wasting so much time on things that are like a low value task. At the time when I started hiring a VA, I was making $5,000 a month. No, $3,000 a month. So
$3,000. Okay.
yeah, I was making $3,000 a month. 6 months after I followed my business coach's advice, not even 3 months after that. So from the time I hired the VA, 3 months later, I was doing $20,000 a month. And that's not just because I hired VA. That's because I hired VA, I tripled my prices, right? So like, again, you know how, if for all of you who've worked with me, you guys probably get sick of me telling you, raise your prices, raise your prices, raise your prices. I triple my prices. I hire a VA, and those two things alone, my VA helped me get more leads. I now was tripling my prices. 3 months later, I was doing $20,000 a month.
3 months later, 3 months after hiring a VA.
Yeah, yeah. But so like, if you think about what that is, right? The first month of me being $20,000 paid for the VA. It only makes sense if you have a game plan for that VA, right? Like just to hire a VA, that's where you have to go through the exercises. That's where you have to know where you're spending your time. And that's where having the right mentorship or coaches that can tell you, hey, Rose, here's what you need to be doing. And when you say, hey, I don't have time to do that, that's when you're like, okay, I know what I need to do. Someone who's been there, done that is telling me what to do. I just have to find the leverage, media, technology, capital, or labor to do it. And that's when you have to decide if you use money, capital, to speed up that time, or if you do it yourself, it takes you a little bit longer, which is not a bad route to do. It just depends on your personal circumstances to do that. So,
And just to follow up, like if you hire a VA and you don't see the ROI, do you then question the process or do you question the VA, or where do you look for clues to see where it's going wrong?
well, I think first is understanding who are you getting that advice from, and do they have a track record of success. So if they have a track record of success, then my first look is the VA. Now, if the VA has a lot of experience and they have a track record of success, then I'm like, oh crap, now I have to really look at both. But generally speaking, I'm looking at one thing at a time. So sequencing, I'm saying, am I getting the right advice from the right person, from someone who's been there, done that, and has also taught someone? And then B, then I go and follow up and saying, is the VA has the right clarity in KPIs? Do they have the right systems and processes to do so? And so that's the sequencing behind it, right? But I would say, I would say it's it would be I would be more likely to check on the strategy and the coach than to blame a VA who they're just following my directions, right? So how can odds are they're doing it because I'm giving them the wrong thing to focus on. But that's my thought. I could be wrong on that one.
So it's more likely the process, or first check the source of information, and then check the system and process, and then check the VA after.
Yes. Because to the point, like, look, here's the problem, right? Social media has made everyone a guru, and we're all falling to that. We're all in this space. That is why I think people have a hesitant. Like, this is why I would say, like, when it's understanding their success stories. Like, I think that's why I always preach, get testimonials, get testimonials, get testimonials, get testimonials. They're so important because the like your skeptic and hesitation that you have when you're investing in a program is the same that your clients have before buying your services. And so I do think like it's making sure that you're learning from the right source, one, and then two, do they have clear expectations? But it could be a mixture of both, right? Like it could be a mixture of both.
And I'm wondering, do you offer one-on-one coaching or is it just the group ones for now?
Our program is it's a hybrid program. There's a lot of one-on-one, but there's a lot of group.
Okay, so only through the program, right?
Just message me, Rose, because I think the difference, and I think we need to talk about this, is that your business is completely different than everyone else in the community. And I'm not sure, because this is only for career coaches, and I know that you are focusing more on LinkedIn. Just
Yeah.
message. Okay?
Okay, I'll message you.
Message me on school.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Great. Any other questions you guys might have? Yeah, Erica, it's if you can hire a great person, but if they don't have clear expectations, clear systems and processes, it could be a waste of investment. I think again, one of the reasons why we started having the VA part of our business wasn't because that was an idea from day one. It was because it was what our clients were needing. And I felt like we could provide that service better than anybody else because we were training them on our systems and processes. Therefore, we can say, hey, they're following that, right? It's like we are, and so that's what we essentially have worked with. Our team is over 20 people just for the Opni team itself. So we already can train them on all the other processes, which is when I was like, Mari, how long does it take for you to train somebody to do a podcast? Because she's already not only knows how to do it herself, but she's already trained other people to do it. And so if those VAs get stuck, they can always go back to, hey, Mari, I'm not sure how to edit this episode. Am I doing it right? And so there's always support in the back end because you're not just getting a VA, you're getting the support on the back end. Like you're getting, like your VA will never be stuck. They can go to the office and fix it. Yeah. Great. Awesome. Well, great call. Any questions that you guys have, feel free to message me, whether it's in Slack, Spencer, or everyone else, you can message me on school or LinkedIn. Thank you guys so much. And if you guys are interested to learn more about what it looks like to work with us or to hire a VA through us, send me a message and we can set up a time to talk and we can explain what that looks like and all of that. Yes, it's really important that you have a clear strategy first and a VA comes second. Because if you have a VA with no strategy, you are essentially spending a lot of money without not knowing if you have a return on investment. Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you. This
Yeah.
was
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Great workshop, everyone. See you guys later. Next week, no workshop is Memorial Day, but we'll see you guys 2 weeks from now. Bye, everyone.